before we start the meeting, I'd like to make an announcement that please, no information on the game. Some of us have taped the game. All right, we call the meeting to order, January 13th, 2020, and we'll start off with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Senior Planner John Ciampa. Madam Secretary, would you take the roll, please?
Please let the record show that all planning commissioners are present.
The minutes from the last meeting, do we have any comments?
Mr. Chair, make a motion that we approve the minutes.
We have moved and seconded. Please vote. It's unanimous. The minutes are approved. Public comments. Anyone wishing to address the commission will please get a slip with your name and information, so we have no one to speak on anything other than that's on the agenda. So we'll move on to a consent calendar. We have nothing on the consent calendar, so we'll move to the public hearing. Item 2, site development permit SDP 180046 to permit the construction of a 3-story single-family dwelling on a hillside condition lot at 25166 Manzanita Drive. We have a staff report.
Yes, Commissioners. Danny Giometti will provide the staff report this evening.
Good evening, Chairman Donor, fellow Commissioners. The project before you this evening is a request for a site development permit to allow the construction of a 3-story residential structure on a hillside lot. So the lot is 2,770 square feet, and it's located northwest of the intersection of Crystal Lantern and Pacific Coast Highway. It's zoned as RSF Single Family 22. It's both shallow in depth and narrow in width, and it's also surrounded by a mixture of multiple family, duplex, single family homes. They range in height from 1 to 4 stories. So this is a slide of these existing conditions of the lot. As you can see, the lot at one point contained it contains a significant slope. The existing site improvements include a legally constructed concrete building foundation, which is shown in yellow on the left there, partial framing, which is shown in green, and retaining walls, which are identified in that red. They were approved under a 2005 minor site development permit, and building and engineering permits were issued shortly thereafter. Construction began in 2006, and the lot was graded. Retaining walls were placed, a building pad was poured, and partial framing, which included that moment frame identified in green, were constructed. Due to financial hardships, the project never was completed, and the building and grading permits that were existing expired. Since 2007, there's been no construction activity, and then in 2018, the same owner submitted an updated design for the single-family dwelling that includes the incorporation of the existing lot improvements. Recent investigation of the original permits determined that through new building permits, existing improvements could be re-inspected, maintained, or retrofitted where needed. So the new proposal is to demolish small portions of the existing foundation and construct a new 3-story single-family dwelling, which again is identified in this yellow color, utilizing the existing retaining walls, foundation, and moment frame that's existing on site. Since the subject site is both shallow in depth, less than 100 feet, and narrow in width, less than 50 feet, the lot can also be developed with a reduced driveway length, with a minimum length of 5 feet and a maximum length of 9 feet, as measured from the back of sidewalk. And as you can see, that's the image on the right there, taken from the site plan, showing a max driveway setback of 9 feet to the garage, and at the shortest point, it's 7 feet 11 and a half inches. So these are the floor plans by each level. The living areas are all shown in the yellow color. The first story includes a two-car garage, which is shown in green, a foyer, half bathroom, and a large crawl space for storage. That area is in the back there on that first level, highlighted in the pink color. The second story is the main living and kitchen area. It includes 2 bedrooms and an in-suite bathroom for each bedroom. And the third story includes the master bedroom with an in-suite bathroom and a walk-in closet. The third and second story frontages are set back from each story below, which creates a private outdoor living area that's identified in the blue color on the second and third levels. And those are both obviously facing Manzanita, the street of Manzanita. The third story deck is also sheltered by a covered patio and an outdoor fireplace. As you can see from the table on the screen, the project complies with all of the applicable development standards, including your yard setbacks, lot coverage, height limit, and landscape coverage, lot coverage. So as I stated earlier, a site development permit is required to build a 3-story structure on a hillside condition lot. A hillside condition lot is a lot with a topographic slope of 20% or greater, and that percentage is calculated by determining the vertical differential between the highest point and the lowest elevation point along the opposing property line, and dividing that number by the horizontal distance between the 2 points. As you can see on the topographic survey on the left here, the low point being identified towards the front of the lot and the high point in the back there, and then the line drawn between the two. And then that's the same line in section view showing the slope. So this lot has been calculated at a 35% slope and therefore accommodates a residential structure to be 3 stories and have an increased building height in accordance with the specific provisions which are outlined in our hillside provision ordinance. So the proposed single-family dwelling incorporates both a 6/12 and a less than 3/12 pitched roof element, and it's also designed at the maximum allowed 33-foot and 29-foot height limits. So the higher point being the 33-foot is at, like I said, 6/12, and the lower flat roof, as shown in green on the left there, is 29 feet in height, and that's for the less than 3/12 pitch portion. The green line, as I said, it indicates the structure height as well as the lowest point, which is the top of the existing pad on site. So as I stated earlier, the proposed home has been designed in compliance with all provisions identified in the Hillside Condition Ordinance, including the maximum FAR, the setbacks at upper levels which are required, height above the upper property line, and it results in a reduction in grading. The lot was also staked and certified in accordance with the city's story pole staking requirements. This is an image of the rendering. As you can see, it incorporates a modern architectural style. There's white smooth stucco exterior walls. There's a black standing seam roof and metal patio cover, black metal overhangs, and also has a white brick veneer finish around the garage. There's a material a sample of the garage brick veneer on the stand over there, so take a look at that as well. The black frame tempered glass guardrails are also going to be shown on, are also going to be incorporated to the balcony and deck areas. And the openings will have black framed vinyl windows and doors, and also a black roll-up garage door. So staff finds that the proposed project is consistent with the basis of approval for a site development permit. Based on the analysis, staff determines that the project's also consistent with the policies and provisions of the City of Dana Point General Plan, as well as the Dana Point Zoning Code. And additionally, the findings contained in the draft Planning Commission resolution supporting approval of the proposed entitlement request can be made, and therefore staff recommends approval of SDP 18-0046, subject to the conditions contained in the attached draft resolution. This concludes the presentation. Myself, as well as the architect, are available to answer any follow-up questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. The commissioner comments to staff?
Thank you. Yeah, I have a couple questions. Just to be clear, the house is not resting on the rear retaining wall, correct?
The house is not resting on the rear retaining wall, correct?
Okay, so do we need to give any retaining wall kind of approvals to kind of confirm for the applicant that those walls are fine, or?
The existing retaining walls, as I said in the presentation, were originally approved as an entitlement, a site development permit back in 2005. And the construction on the retaining walls, the portions that would require a site development permit were completed. So this particular project is the site development permit strictly for the hillside condition requirement. And as in the staff report and as well as in the conditions, it's stated that they will be, the existing site improvements will be re-inspected, and any retrofitting or rememorialization through building permits or engineering permits will be required.
Okay, thanks. And then you mentioned a couple times that there was because of the hillside condition, there was a max driveway of 9 feet, and you showed that. Is there a maximum, or are you just saying that's the biggest, the deepest that they have?
So it actually isn't connected to the hillside condition ordinance. Lots that are found in the city to be both shallow and narrow, meaning less than 100 feet in length and 50 feet in width, can be built with or constructed with a reduced driveway length. And that can be a minimum of 5 feet, but no longer than 9 feet.
Well, just out of curiosity, why would we have a maximum of how long they could have their driveway?
Because if it was longer than 9 feet, but less than the required length, you might not be able to easily accommodate more than one vehicle or a portion of a vehicle, and that could potentially be hanging out into the sidewalk.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Danny. A couple questions for you. I'm not sure, it doesn't have a sheet number. It's Civilscapes Engineering. At the back of the property, it shows 2 dotted lines, and I'm trying to figure out, is one a property line and I don't know if one's setback and one's property line. Just trying to figure out what that is. It's the 4th plan in the package.
Gotcha. On the grading and drainage plan, I'm seeing that. And you're saying it's sheet 4, though?
Oh, it says sheet 2 of 4.
Sheet 2, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, on the grading and drainage plan, that's identifying a 4-foot utility easement. The
Okay.
internal line, the external line is the property line.
Okay, so then if I go to sheet SP1, so it's showing a 7-foot 6-inch setback. That does not include the easement, so the easement is an additional 4 feet beyond there?
That's incorrect. So the easement does not affect the setback requirement or distance. It's just an area that area is being identified as an easement for any existing or future improvements as a identifier.
So so I guess my question is the property line that's shown, the second line, which is the property line, their rear yard setback line here?
It's
The
not
solid
shown,
line?
so the easement line isn't shown on the site plan, but it would be within between the
be-
property line and that existing retaining wall.
Okay, because the only thing that I was trying to figure out, it shows 510 square foot landscape area, and I'm just not how you're getting that calculation based on those dimensions. It just seems low.
You mean behind the retaining wall, but
Yes.
between the property line and the retaining wall?
Oh, maybe there's more area, because I'm just looking at rear yard setback, so it might be fine. It just doesn't look like that area is adding up to the 510 square feet, that's all.
So the landscape plan includes a planting plan legend, and they've identified areas to where that percentage calculates out to the minimum requirement.
Right.
As part of as part of the permit, there's a specific condition that requires that we have a separate landscape permit provided on the property, and at that point, we will make sure and inspect that it does meet the minimum development standard for landscape
Right,
coverage.
yeah, okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Danny.
No problem.
Commissioner Nelson?
Do you know what was approved here originally? They got the foundation and the retaining wall and the moment frame built, and how close and how does this compare to what was originally approved?
You're saying the existing improvements, how close are they to what was originally?
there a home attached to that approval?
There was, yeah. So there
Okay.
was a design for a home that It was actually a lot different. Originally, it did have a third story, but it was more of a doghouse or access point onto a roof deck. The original design also had different. It was more of a terraced design on all sides, whereas this particular one has the required setbacks on each level and has an actual third floor.
Okay, thank you.
Danny, did the FAR is .75, so that's 2159 development?
That is
Does-
correct.
Does that exclude the parking garage?
400 square feet of the parking area is excluded from the FAR calculation. Any additional space in the garage or floor area in the garage is included in that calculation.
And the requirement, it says that an automatic garage door opener and a roll-up garage door, it must be kept in operating condition. Does that mean cars must be stored in the garage, or is that?
That is correct. The two vehicle parking area inside of the garage is for vehicle storage.
So would that be a condition that would be part of the approval?
I don't know if we're required to condition that. That would be something that we would want to double check with the city attorney.
Okay.
The zoning code already requires that. It's a built-in mechanism for storage for the vehicles. They're required to have a two-car garage with a minimum 20 feet in width by 20 feet in depth of unobstructed garage space.
Okay.
Chairman,
Any other?
can I have another question?
Sure.
Regarding the retaining wall in back, there's no kind of railing or fall protection on it right now, correct?
That is correct.
Is there any conditions to require them to add that?
So we don't have any conditions that are specific to adding a guardrail. That being said, there's a condition, as I stated earlier, that will require that anything that's existing out there be updated and brought into the 2019 code cycle compliance. And if that includes the requirement for a guardrail on that area, then that would be something they would explore at that point. I don't believe it's a walkable surface above the retaining wall, and that may be a reason why a guardrail would not be required. That being said, I'm not the expert on.
But it's going to be landscaped, and so that landscaping will need maintenance. I mean, even if it's not kind of an active area, I mean, it's such a high wall.
Right.
I would definitely think there should be some level of fall protection there.
Yeah, that's something that that the building official, when this comes into building plan check and those retaining walls are rechecked, that's something that they will make the determination on, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Murphy?
Just sharing with you. I noted that there was story polling during as you have progressed. Did you encounter any pushback from the folks in the area?
We did not receive any correspondence related to this project after the staking or the notices went out.
Okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
No further commissioner comments, then I'll open it up to public hearing. Do we have any comments from the public?
Those are weekly rentals or short-term rentals right above it. And several times the people come down the stairway there and cut down to the beach because it cuts off a big, long walk all the way around the neighborhood. And I think some railing around that would be an advisable thing because I've seen people walking every once in a while. We yell at them, but it doesn't do much good. But they come down, they're only there for 2 or 3 days. They don't know what's going on, and they don't want to walk that distance. So I would think that would be a good idea to do something. If that's my house right there, right behind the large retaining wall. But I just do think that would be something that you should think about. And besides for that, everything looks fine. Thank you.
Have any other comments? All right, I'll turn it back to the commissioners then. I'll close the public hearing and open up to the commissioners for any other discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I drive by this lot quite often on my way home, and I have watched it for a number of years and wondered, what are they going to do with this thing? And you got a massive retaining wall in the backyard, a moment frame in the front yard, and what I've seen here is a really well thought out design that takes into account some pretty challenging conditions. I do, I never gave the guardrail a thought until tonight, so I think you brought it up, as well as I think it was Wayne By. But I think that's, that is a fairly large wall, and it would be pretty easy to come down that hill and make a mistake in the dark and end up falling. I don't know how many feet that is. So I would go, I'm in support of the project. I do have, we have no driveway here, so we have an area that I know has got some impacts in parking, so I want to make sure that we condition that garage to be used as for parking only, and not for storage, and that we add a railing on that back wall for protection as a condition. Other than those two items, I'd be in full support of this project if we could get condition with that.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
I agree, and I was out there and was quite astonished the first time I went out there and just saw this massive concrete wall there in the back, and I thought, how's anyone ever going to be able to pick up this and do something with it now? And then when I saw the graphics and saw what was going on and heard what was going on and how it's all just come together, and I think it looks wonderful in the graphics, and I think that's a perfect place to put that house eventually.
I agree wholeheartedly. I've had my eye on that lot for many, many years, and this is a beautiful design. I don't know who of you out there is doing it, but it's fantastic. It'll be a fantastic addition to Dana Point. I agree with both conditions that Commissioner Nelson recommends. So I guess with that, I would move to make a motion. I would move that we approve Site Development Permit SDP 18-0046 to permit the construction of a three-story single-family dwelling on a hillside condition lot at 25166 Manzanita Drive, with the two added conditions that there be an appropriate building department approved guardrail at the top of the top and sides of the retaining wall, and that the garage be required to be used as parking and no storage allowed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this motion. Please vote. It's unanimous. Congratulations. Project's approved. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a coastal development permit, CDP 190018, and site development permit SDP 190030 to demolish a single-family residence and construct a 5,333 square foot single-family residence and an attached three-car garage, and allow an increased retaining wall height and a maximum driveway grade at 32081 C Island Drive. We have a staff report.
Yes, Principal Planner Belinda Dinas will provide this presentation.
Thank you, Brenda. Good evening, Chair Donor, Planning Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Belinda Dinas, Staff Planner for the proposed project at the Sundar Residence. This project is before you for review and approval of a coastal development permit because the proposed project is located on property in the Coastal Overlay District in the non-appeals jurisdiction, and a site development permit is required for increased retaining wall height and driveway grade. The subject site is located in the Monarch Bay Terrace Association near the end of the cul-de-sac at the top of Sea Island Drive. The property is developed within an existing 2,784 square foot, one-story, single-family dwelling with an attached two-car garage. The lot is approximately 15,648 square feet in area, and the property is immediately adjacent to a steep open space slope along the rear. The property is located within the residential single-family 4 zoning district and planned residential District 1. Here's the property from street view of the existing structure, which will be demolished in its entirety. The applicant proposes to construct a 4,990 square foot house and detached 343 square foot accessory living quarters with an attached 3-car tandem garage. The house is 2 stories with 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, including new landscaping and hardscaping throughout the site. The project received homeowner association approval from the Monarch Bay Terrace Property Owners Association. The project meets all development standards for the RSF 4 and PRD 1 zoning district as summarized in this chart. Here's the proposed site plan, which identifies the location of the 3-car tandem garage and required setbacks. This new home features an open floor plan layout with the main living area oriented to the west facing ocean views. Because the property is located in the very high fire hazard severity zone, the project's landscape plan must comply with fuel modification requirements from Orange County Fire Authority. The exterior reflects a soft contemporary style with a variety of finished materials and architectural features. Floor-to-ceiling glass doors and glazing are proposed on the west-facing side of the house, and a variety of windows provide visual interest within the courtyard. The applicant has provided a color rendering of the project as shown from Sea Island Drive. Here's the proposed color and material sample board with white smooth stucco walls, stone veneer, wood trim and fascia, dark bronze frame windows and doors, slate roofing, cable railings, and glass garage doors. As for Coastal Act requirements, the proposed improvements meet the development standards of the municipal code and is consistent with the city's general plan. The project is not located within the nearest public roadway in the sea, and public coastal access exists along this portion of the coast, located at Salt Creek Beach as shown on the aerial map. Furthermore, this project constitutes infill development on an already developed property with no significant environmental impacts associated with the proposed work. With regard to the site development permit, the applicant requests deviations to standard requirements for retaining wall height and driveway grade. Retaining walls greater than 30 inches are subject to discretionary review. The project proposes retaining walls along both sides of the yards up to 10.2 feet in exposed height from grade as highlighted in yellow above. These walls are not visible from the street view and will be screened by fencing and landscaping. For a single-family residence, the required maximum grade is 10% within the first 10 feet and 15% thereafter, unless otherwise approved by the Director of Public Works. The applicant proposes an average of 17% as shown in teal. The Public Works Department has reviewed the proposed design and determined that the additional slope is appropriate at the site and is adequate for vehicular access. Staff recommends approval with justification and analysis in support of the CDP and SDP findings and conditions as described in the draft resolution. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for the staff from the commission? Commissioner Nelson, Commissioner Murphy? Nope. Scott?
Hey, Belinda. My big concern, you kind of addressed it. My big concern was the driveway, really, and its functionality. It's looking like they're putting a 4% reverse slope. Is that on the sidewalk in the public right-of-way?
It is proposed within the sidewalk. So
Okay,
there is somewhat of a slope in order to mitigate drainage along the street
right.
with the curbway, the driveway curb cut, and then it'll descend down to the garage
Right,
frontage.
so is there any conditions, because in a typical condition, like the sidewalk drains into the street, not onto private property, is there any kind of condition where they're kind of signing off that they're accepting the water? Or do we need some kind of condition like that? Because what they're doing is they're exacerbating, they're putting themselves more of a flooding risk, potentially, of water coming from the public right of way straight into their garage.
Correct. So within the sidewalk itself, it varies from 2% to 6% because the slope of the street itself
Okay.
goes from side to side.
Right.
And so it varies depending on, the driveway approach and the location of the driveway approach as well in terms of the grade.
Okay. I mean, I assume the architect is here. If he or she is, maybe they can address just that they've really looked at this issue and that it's going to be functional, that the cars aren't going to high center on that angle point and so forth. Other than that, I have no questions at this time.
The project architect, Brian Jeanette, is here if you'd like for him to answer the question.
Please come on up.
Real quickly, Commissioner McCann, it looks like condition of approval number 13 requires a hydrology study and hydraulic study required for sump pump or alternative drainage design. The hydrology and hydraulic study shall be submitted for review and approval as part of the grading application, and that's prior to issuance of a grading permit. Welcome.
Do you agree?
I don't want to interrupt your process. If you'd like me, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
My name is Brian Jeanette. I'm the architect on the project. And we did look at the driveway situation. And I think it's important to note that the 17% is kind of in the middle driveway. Because the CL ain't sloped as much as it does, it's 14% at the lower end, but it's 20 at the upper. So the average, as Belinda's pointing out, is the 17. So we have taken that into the design parameters with the sump pump just in case. We're anticipating that anyway. And if you like, I can go ahead and say just a few words unless you have other questions that I can answer.
No, we're good. Thank you.
I did meet with the neighbors quite a few times to help resolve some questions concerning view preservation. Marty Wall is here tonight, who was one of the neighbors we worked with, and another gentleman, Hussein, I can't remember his last name, was here earlier, and we worked with both of them concerning the views, concerning site retaining walls and landscaping, and I believe they were very satisfied with the results. And so I think based on just simply, if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing no other commissioner comments, I will open it up to any other public comments. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and open up for commissioner discussion. We'll start off, Scott.
Thank you. I think it's a beautiful design on a challenging lot. I think they've, done a good job of making sure the design in compliance with all of the requirements. So with that, I'm in support of the project.
Commissioner Murphy?
Oh, get it. Yeah, to me, having read all this and looked at the progression of the neighborhood, the broad neighborhood, And it is a typical progression that we see from neighborhoods that were built 20 years ago, 25 years ago, which we would expect. We would be here today because things evolve and tastes change and people move in and out. And it looks like you're all doing it in a very clear and gentlemanly way. So, yes, I'm very much in favor of it.
All right, I will look for a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so I've reviewed the plans and looked at the site. It's completely consistent with our coastal plan. It conforms to all the development standards as it relates to the site development permit. I see that it's, the project itself is in compliance with our development standards. It's certainly suitable for this site, and it's in compliance with our general plan and urban design guidelines. So for those reasons, I would support it, and I'd make a motion that we approve it as submitted. So my motion would be to approve coastal development permit CDP 19-0018 and site development permit SDP 19-0030 to demolish a single-family residence and construct a 5,333 square foot single-family residence, an attached 3-car garage, and allow increased retaining wall height and maximum driveway grade at 32081C Island Drive.
I'd second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Unanimous, it's approved. Congratulations. And with that driveway, you're not going to have much ice to slide down the driveway, and so it looks good. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a tentative parcel map, TPM 180001, site development permit, SDP 160025, to permit the construction of a 3-story duplex condominium on a hillside condition lot with a request to waive the required 5th parking space and increased height retaining walls located within the residential multifamily RMF 14 zoning district at 34072 Collegial Drive. We have a staff report.
Yes, our next presenter is Senior Planner John Champa.
Good evening, Chair Donor, Planning Commissioners. John Champa. I'm the case planner for the requested tentative parcel map and site development permit on Collegio Drive. The subject property is a 6,700 square foot lot located within the RMF 14 zoning district within the Lantern District, which is adjacent to the town center. As you can see here, it is a corner lot located off of Collegio Drive and the alley there. Just to give you a quick description of the project, it includes a 3-story duplex with 2 attached 2-car garages. Each unit would be approximately 2,000 square feet, and the project would be in a Spanish contemporary design. The entitlements necessary for the project are a tentative parcel map to allow for the legal sale of the individual units or condominiums, as well as a site development permit to allow for the 3-story residence, increased wall heights for the property, and to waive the required 5th parking stall. This is the existing conditions of the site. As you can see here, it is located on the corner of the alley in Collegio Drive. It is undeveloped and surrounded by 2- and 3-story single and multifamily residential units. This is the site plan for the project, and it is in compliance with all the necessary setbacks as identified in the RMF 14 zoning district. And as you can see, Unit A would be accessed off of Collegio Drive, and Unit B would be accessed off of the alley. Both garages would be providing 20-foot front yards or 20-foot setbacks. The project per level, as you can see here, left to right, the first level or the lowest level would be the garage for Unit B, which would be partially subterranean. This would be the only component of the project that would require any substantial grading as part of the 3-story project. Then on the second level, would have the garage for Unit A, as well as the living and dining rooms for both units, as well as a bedroom. And then on the third level would be 3 additional bedrooms, including the master bedroom. Decks are provided off of the second and third level, off of the alley and off of Colegio Drive. These are the renderings of the proposed project. On the left-hand side is off of Colegio Drive, where you can see the different architectural elements and features that are incorporated in here into the design, as well as on the right-hand side is off of the alley. Both elevations are proposing decks, architectural tower elements, as well as Spanish elements to convey the contemporary design, which include the stucco siding, veneer stone or veneer brick, concrete roof tiles, and decorative tile. The project does conform with all of the applicable development standards associated with the RMF 14 zoning district, with the exception of the 5th parking stall that is requested to be waived as part of the site development permit, which staff will be discussing later. The project is located on a hillside condition lot. As you can see here along the alley, along the northeast corner of the lot, is the high point, and the low point is along the southeastern corner of the lot. It does result in a 25% slope, which does qualify for the hillside condition lot, and does reduce the amount of grading necessary for the project, given that only the garage for Unit B is being proposed as the major grading component of the project. The project does comply with the height requirements for the site development permit to allow for a 3-story structure, given that the structure itself will be at 29 feet in height. However, there will be architectural elements that will project up to 32 feet. However, that is allowed as long as it's not livable area, and does not take up more than 5% of the roof area, and as proposed is approximately 4% of the roof area. The structure's height along the higher elevation, which is along the interior side yard setback off of Colegio, does provide the 14-foot height requirement, which is in compliance with the 3-story site development permit requirements. Project site, as previously discussed, is also requesting deviations from the municipal code for the retaining wall heights, as well as the parking waiver of the 5th parking stall. To speak to the retaining walls first, highlighted in yellow, the retaining walls range in heights from 4 feet to 9 feet, which are requested due to the topographical conditions of the lot. As you can see, along the southeastern corner of the lot is where the property is at its steepest conditions. At this point is where the driveway access is, so it's necessary. The walls are necessary not only to provide vehicular but also pedestrian access to the stairs to that particular unit, along with the rear elevation and the side elevation. The waiver of the 5th parking stall is requested also due to the topographical conditions of the lot, as well as the orientation of the lot, given that it is a corner lot located off of Colegio Drive and the alley. It offers little opportunity to provide that additional 5th parking space out of the front yard setback. To do that would impact potentially either the landscape design or the architectural design of the project, and possibly result in additional curb cut along Colegio Drive, which would result in impacting on the available street parking, which is already heavily used at this point in time. In addition to that, staff did evaluate possible alternatives. However, staff felt that the waiver was appropriate given the conditions mentioned, as well as the project is providing 20-foot front yard 20-foot setbacks for both driveways. which would be able to provide additional parking if necessary for the site. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff is recommending approval of the proposed tentative parcel map and site development permit, subject to the findings and conditions of approval provided in your draft resolution. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dan. The commissioner's comments to staff questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions. So walk me through the waiver. I know that we've done this before. We see this in the duplex zoning quite often, I believe, up in Capo. The waiver, though, this is not a variance. There's a waiver process outlined in our code that allows for this.
Correct. So for any lot that's proposing a duplex that's 50 feet or wider in width is required to provide a fifth parking space. However, that can be waived with the approval of a site development permit, given that the standard site development permit conditions can be met. Staff also looks at site design, project or site conditions to ensure that one is appropriately designed, and there is no real feasible alternative that would impact the project and its feasibility as a duplex. And given this particular condition, it's not an interior lot, it's on a corner, so it has greater setbacks along the alley, as well as with the topographical constraints. Additional retaining walls are necessary to just provide access to the existing. And in addition to that, as part of the provisions for a three-story structure is to limit the amount of grading on site. So that was also taken into consideration, as well as previously discussed, the parking conditions in the area, possibly widening the curb cut, which would reduce available street parking into the area.
Gotcha. Okay. So on the first project we heard tonight, the lot was too narrow, so they don't even have a driveway. So we have our code parking requirements are more, seems like based on width of lots as opposed to bedroom count. I mean, I know we have some requirements for bedroom counts, but would that be a fair characterization of the two different projects? The only reason that one didn't have a driveway is because it wasn't wide enough to have a driveway in the first place?
That is one element, and then also that was a single-family residence, so only a two-car garage was required, and that's it, unless they had significant number of bedrooms. But as you mentioned, those are the main two components.
Okay. And then the second question would be on the map, on the parcel map, or the tract map, or parcel map. So we have a condition or a requirement that they have to meet all the code requirements. Does the waiver essentially mean they meet that requirement, then it's not considered not meeting the requirement under the map, the subdivision code?
The waiver would be considered that it does meet
It does
the code.
meet.
Correct.
Okay. So effectively we remove that requirement and therefore they meet all the code requirements to get the map in the first place.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
The curb cut that's going to take place on Collegio Drive to give access to the parking garage will eliminate one street parking location. Can a car be parked in the driveway? I don't mean the residents, but visitors. Can visitors park in the driveways?
Yes, a visitor of Unit A could park in that driveway space. So functionally, yes, it would be providing that accessible parking to that unit. However, per the zoning ordinance, that can't be counted towards this space technically, given that it would be considered a tandem parking space.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments?
John, I have one question. On the south elevation, the entrance is off of the alley and not the street. It's just, there's no sidewalk, there's no requirement for any path of travel to the main street or anything like that. It's just the entrance, the stairs go down to the alley, and then they walk to the alley to wherever.
That's correct.
So there's no, there's no other requirement for anything for path of traveler.
Correct. Given that it's a duplex, no accessible path of travel would be required in this circumstance. This was reviewed by Public Works to ensure that this design was in conformance with the necessary requirements. And given it is an alley, no sidewalk is required in this particular area.
All right, thank you.
We have no further commissioner comments. I'll open it up to the public. Christopher Dupra? Dupra.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Chris Dutra. I live at 3406163 Colegio Drive, which is across the street from the proposed project, slightly diagonal. I don't know if you might have a map that would help me explain my concern this evening that might show that. Is that the... is there any way you can use a pointer to identify my property on the overhead here?
What's your address?
3406163 Colegio Drive, across the street,
So
slightly
it's the third one
diagonal.
in.
Yes, that's right. I've owned the property for 10 years. I'm a resident of Dana Point. And I am concerned that the project as proposed, looking at the ropes and the 2x4s across the street, is going to block my ocean view. I think that's a very important part of my property, is I do have that view, and it totally blocks it. My other concern is that I think the project is simply too large for that corner. It's kind of like the Magnificent Bulk. The property directly east of this proposed project is a small one-story beach cottage. And this project, when you look at the rendering, it's a very nice looking project, but it's huge. It's very big. And it really is much larger, although the city planner mentioned that most of the properties in this area are 2- and 3-story. That's not true. Most of them are 2-story. There might be some 3 stories the next street over, the next street up, but not on this particular section of Colegio Drive. So it is really going to stand out, in my opinion, not in a very attractive way. If something could be done to lower the roof line so that my view of the ocean wouldn't be blocked, and even and also I think to make the project smaller. Do I have a limit?
That just means you need to wrap it up.
Oh, okay. Okay, I will wrap it up. I would be more inclined to not oppose a project if the roof line could be brought down, and if it wasn't such a large project. Secondly, I'm concerned about the parking situation a great deal. Parking on that street is a huge problem. We got a lot of duplexes and triplexes, and parking is extremely tight. You know, my tenants are telling me that all the time. So waiving that, I'm against waiving that additional parking space.
Thank you. Next is Marlene Lopez.
There's one other thing I'd like to add quickly, all right? I was out of the country until January 6th.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
All right, if I had gotten notice earlier, I could have been more prepared. Thank you.
Notices are also in the paper. Next, Marina Lopez.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Marlene Lopez, and I am a property owner on Colegio, about two houses away from the site. I'm here to ask that you deny the requested variance to waive the required parking. There's not enough parking on this street because there's many duplexes, triplexes, and driveways, and just not enough parking. And adding another rental building or condominium building without the required parking will just add to the difficulty for the citizens who live on this street. And service providers who come to this street cannot find parking, and the residents have to move their cars blocks away in order to have somebody come and service their water heater or whatever it may be. On trash day, it's even worse because there's a lot of trash cans outside taking up valuable parking. So these restrictions were put in place for valid reasons and should not be ignored. And I request that you deny the waiver. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Lampioco?
Close enough. Lo
Close enough.
Monaco, Sarah
Thank you.
Lo Monaco. I am the owner, Mr. Gomez, of the single-story unit directly behind. And you know my husband, Frank, and everybody knows Frank. But anyway, parking is an issue in Dana Point. It is a horrendous issue in Dana Point. We all have too many cars. We all love our cars. So thank you very much, City Council, for putting in the touristy summer shuttle. I use that. However, there is not enough bus service coming through Dana Point, and if you guys have any say with the Orange County OCTA bus services, that would be great. That property is right next to Golden Lantern that has a bus going through it, and Coast Highway has a bus going through it. The number one bus coming south through Dana Point, there are no stops in town center, except from Selva to all the way to Ralph's. Useless to all the people who live in that area and town center north. There used to be a bus 87 that would come through Dana Point. It stops in Laguna Niguel now. I don't know why, right? We need to get our buses in so we can not have so many cars. Am I allowed to take copies of some of these pictures home to discuss the retaining wall with my husband? Because the retaining wall is the big concern on our property line there. And I noticed the variance from the back of along 34062 and 340 is 5 feet. Is that all? I thought it was going to be a little wider than that. From our property fence line to the structure of the building is only 5 feet. All right. And of course, the fewer windows looking down on our property would be the better, and I can't figure out the view of that. Do you have the view of of his structure on the 062 property view? How many windows?
Excuse me, just to be clear, this is a time for public comment, not question and answer.
Yeah.
So if you could
I'm
direct
sorry.
your comments to the
Okay,
Planning Commission.
so-
Thank you.
All right. I guess that's that. More buses, so we don't have to have so many cars. Got it? Thank you.
The engineering group are available for, if you want to get copies of anything. Next, we have Marilyn Len Gardner.
Yes, I think the points are well taken by the other owners on the street. We own the house on the opposite end of the street, same side of the street on Colegio. 34012 is our address. And I was just wondering, like, is there a construction time frame yet if it's approved? And the other thing is, who is the builder? I'm kind of neutral about this, but on the positive side, I see a really ugly lot getting some building on it that's much more attractive. I sympathize with somebody who's going to get their ocean view cut. That's sad, but it sounds like it is a rental rather than the person inhabiting it themselves, but it would influence the rental value, I'm sure, of that property. But overall, I hate this side of that lot every time I see it. And then there's a Christmas tree lot right across the alley that I wish I would get developed. So I think it would raise the value of the homes on the street. We own one car, we share it. We have 2 parking spaces in our driveway and 2 possible in the garage, although we hardly ever use both of them. But we do Airbnb and so forth, and we make it with the parking we have. I'm sorry to those people that are upset, but I'm not upset. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? All right, then I will close the public comment section and open it up to commissioner comments, commissioner discussion.
So I live right down the street, not within 500 feet, and it's hard to deny that there aren't parking challenges in this neighborhood. The cause of those, I think, is where the debate gets to start. And on any given day, you can drive up and down Colegio, Malaga, La Cresta, Silver Lantern, and half of the houses on those streets have their garages full. They've got campers and Sea-Doos in their driveways, and they aren't actively participating in their community and providing enough parking for themselves or using our streets for their own stuff. And frankly, I don't think that's a place for us to get into. I could probably sit up here all day and talk about my issues with parking, but I think this project is a great example of really, I think, missing the boat. We had a project, the first one before us had 3 bedrooms, no driveway, and there was no issue. This one's got 6 bedrooms, 8 parking spaces, 2 driveways, 2 enclosed garages, and there's a requirement for another one. I still can't figure out exactly what that extra space is. It's sort of this, well, if it's big enough, they should have it. Not necessarily because they need it. It's not based on bedroom counts, it's just based on width and the fact that there's a duplex. But once it's subdivided, it's 2 single-family homes or 2 attached homes that have more parking than the project that was on the first agenda item that doesn't even have a driveway. And I know we don't get to count driveways, but I think the idea that it doesn't have enough parking would only come into play if they didn't use their garage for parking. There's 3 bedrooms. They're very small bedrooms. I don't know if you guys looked at those, but they're small, to say the least, so they're not going to be habited by a bunch of people. And I think this project provides plenty of parking as is. I'm sorry that you're losing your ocean view. I'd love to have one myself, but my neighbor blocks mine. And unfortunately, we don't have options here. They can't cut the lot, if I'm not mistaken, right? So they've already got a lot that's severely impacted by topography, and we have a code that provides relief for that. So, I think it's well-sized. If you look at our development standards, it's below almost every single development standard. It hasn't exceeded one of them, from everything from lot coverage to FAR setbacks are standard. And, I find this project really well-designed on a really compromised site that's living off of an alley but that on both sides of that alley have 3-story homes. So it's completely consistent with the neighborhood. I think there's a 4-story building just a block to the west, if I'm not mistaken. That being said, I would want to add that same condition that we added on the first one, that would require that they use the garages for parking, that they're not used for storage. But other than that, I'm completely in support of this project tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
When I first got the paperwork for this project, I ran out to Coast Highway, or the street that's up above Coast Highway that we're talking about. And I thought, what a great place to build this kind of project, because it's when you look at it, it's just made, it's a step up, that part of a step up from Coast Highway. So this project is not really on Coast Highway, although it is it's accessible. Um, It's easy to agree that in some ways the project seems to be too big for that corner. And I went and looked at it, and I like my fellow commissioners, we know the areas well. We are always running around up, all over Dana Point, and nobody wants to have their views blocked. Nobody does, for any reason. Traffic can be bad on Coast Highway, but at least with this particular project, you are up a step away from Coast Highway, which makes the bus accessible. My first thought was, can we make this project smaller? Can we do something to make it smaller? Because if you walk, we all have walked those streets, I can guarantee everybody up here. And if you start comparing, of course, some of those projects were made in the 1920s, and here we are. This is not an easy issue. We look at it and we come against it and around it in Dana Point all the time. But there are in the future ways to look at, like more buses perhaps, or walking lanes, or street bicycle lanes, things of that nature. I would like to see a smaller project. However, I do understand the intrinsic value of this particular project. They've done a good job. They've done well on that particular location. So perhaps somebody can sway me one way or the other.
Commissioner?
I'm very supportive of the project. It's a great design. I do have a concern that Sarah did bring up about the second floor windows on the north elevation and the privacy issue going in. I don't know what's on their south elevation, but I know that we've done this before at a project in Capo Beach, where instead of using those large windows, maybe they look at the smaller ones on the east elevation. So it's still bringing the natural light in, but respecting the neighbor's privacy. So that's really the only comment that I have at this time.
Thank you. Regarding your comment, I don't know, I'd have to compare them against the floor plan, but if those are bedrooms, well, every window, every room needs a certain amount of light and ventilation, but particularly if they're bedrooms, it's highly regulated, and there's also mandatory sill heights and stuff for fire safety and egress, so we can't just willy-nilly shrink windows to desirable sizes and heights and so forth, without at least knowing what we're impacting. I'm sympathetic to the residents that have come out tonight and that have a parking problem or are going to lose their view or whatever. I'd like to mention that what our role is as planning commissioners is we don't get to decide whether we like or don't like the project, or we think it's pretty or ugly, or whatnot, or if it's going to take away someone's view. Our job is to evaluate the project on its merits against the code. There's zoning codes that restrict and require what can and can't be built on that lot, on every lot in town, but that lot has its own set of codes. The applicant bought the lot and is proposing something that is within the code. So whether we like it or don't like it is immaterial. We're evaluating it. Does it meet the codes? And in this case, it meet the codes. Now, you could say, well, what about this fifth parking spot that they're waiving? I agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Nelson. This property, if you think about it, okay, there's going to be 2 units there. Normally, 2 units would have two-car driveway cuts, which is going to take away parking spaces off the street. In this case, one of the cuts is off the alley where there's no parking. So you're getting 2 units serviced, only losing 1 space out of a driveway cut on Colegio. If you wanted a 5th space, they would make that curb cut 3-car wide, and you'd lose another spot on Colegio. So it's kind of shooting yourself in the foot to say, please waive that parking. And like it's pointed out, they're going to have parking in addition to the 4 enclosed spaces in the garage for 4 additional spots in their driveways. So they're providing, in my opinion, more parking than is required. I'm in support of the project. I find that it's being developed within the codes. It's appropriate for the neighborhood. It's in compliance with the various codes and requirements, and so I'm supportive of the project.
I'd like to mention the issue of an ocean view. The value of an ocean view is accepted, but if we take away someone's opportunity to build, we're basically taking away value from that property owner and transferring it to someone that doesn't own the property. So I don't see how we can say, if you have a view and someone else says, well, I have a right to build this, and if we stop them from building that so that you keep your view, we're basically taking value from that person, economic opportunity from them, and transferring it to a third party. So I think that compared to a vacant lot, that this project is a dramatic improvement. And I think I agree with both the commissioners on the parking issue. I think there's more parking than there exists now there. So I'm totally in favor of the project, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve tentative parcel map TPM 18-0001, site development permit STP 16-0025 to permit the construction of a 3-story duplex condominium on a hillside condition lot with a request to waive the required 5th parking space and increased height retaining walls located within the residential multifamily zoning district at 34072 Colegio Drive, with an added condition that the two garages are used for parking only and not storage.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations. The project is approved, and now we'll move on to the next agenda item. We have no old business, we have no new business, and now we have staff reports.
Good evening, Commissioners. My first Plan Commission, and I just want to say I'm excited to be here and work with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. Do we have any other comments from the commissioners?
I do.
All right.
Welcome, Brenda. And Happy New Year to everybody. I was told that you can't wish Happy New Year after January 15th, so we just snuck this in under the wire. I would like to request that in lieu of these personalized water container devices, that maybe just in recognition of reduced labor costs, that just bottled water be provided.
Can I second that?
Cheap, generic.
Third.
Okay. And lastly, with respect to the football championship that's going on right now, I just want to let everyone know, but I hope that the Tigers win.
So we're going to kill the environment. We're going to use plastic bottles.
No, we're going to bring.
See, what I would propose is that I've
own.
offered to buy the Dana Point whatever that right there, and everybody gets one of those, and bring it to the meeting if you want water, and if you don't want water, then don't bring it to the meeting.
Perfect.
Be an adult and take care of yourself. That would be my motion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Meeting is adjourned.